On March 26, 2001, Vince McMahon addressed the audience on Monday Night Raw, informing them that he was on the cusp of purchasing WCW. Time Warner was begging him to sign a contract that he would only sign if Ted Turner himself delivered the contract live at WrestleMania. He says, many people were asking me what I should do with WCW, then answers, WCW will remain buried. Out of nowhere, Shane McMahon interrupts Vince's promo to inform him that the contract has been signed, and it's definitely McMahon's name on the contract, but it's Shane McMahon's. Less than 2 years after an 83-week reign of dominating the TV ratings, WCW was officially out of the business, sold for a paltry $4.2 million. Many point to the nonsensical storylines and finger pokes of doom, while others point towards the behind-the-scenes politics or the flat-out reckless spending habits of Eric Bischoff. The reality is that a lot of mishandled decisions led to the end of the most exciting era of wrestling. But what if? What if we could go back to the beginning of the decade and sidestep some of the biggest mistakes? Would that also erase some of the most iconic moments? Would that erase moments that happened before dirt sheets, before kayfabe was widely acknowledged? Moments that shaped our childhood and impacted us on a deep emotional level? Welcome to May 1990. The flagship events earlier in the year have wrapped up storylines and feuds, and now the build-up begins all over again. Episode 0 caught us up on the title picture coming into the series, so make sure you check that out. WCW has a Capital Comeback pay-per-view event only a few weeks away. WWF is building towards SummerSlam at the end of August, but has a special main event pay-per-view coming up at the end of June. The Ultimate Warrior is taking the reins in WWF, while WCW has a familiar world champion in Ric Flair. Two younger stars, close friends Lex Luger and Sting, are both looking to end Flair's latest title reign. New contenders are battling for the right to challenge champions, and new feuds are always brewing. So let's take a look at some of the opening matches for each weekly TV show. First up on WWF Superstars, we have Barry Horowitz matching up against Earthquake, and he looks big, mean, and imposing. Earthquake starts off aggressively and lifts Horowitz into the air. Horowitz is able to escape and slides down for a quick pin attempt. This definitely catches Earthquake off guard, but he's able to reverse the pin into a pin of his own. That might have seemed like a good idea, but Earthquake takes it personally and absolutely wrecks Horowitz in the corner. Action goes outside the ring for more pain before both guys make it back inside. Barry tries to get a few shots in, but Earthquake shoves him back and then runs him over like a freight train. Horowitz sends Earthquake into the ropes, but he just belly bumps him and sets him up for the Earthquake splash. Referee counts to 3, and this one's in the books. WCW Saturday Night kicks off with the young Bam Bam Bigelow and Bob Holly taking on Z-Man and Flying Brian, who are at this time the United States Tag Team Champions. So Bob Holly and to a lesser extent Bam Bam Bigelow were basically enhancement talent during this time. The match gets underway and you see early offense from Bob Holly. He gets in a couple of chops, pulls off a fireman's carry. Flying Brian sends Holly into the ropes, ducks under the rebound, and hits a beautiful hurricanrana. He gives Holly an elbow in the corner before tagging in Z-Man. Z-Man wastes no time pulling off an early version of a Spanish Fly, part of a repertoire he picked up during his time in All Japan Pro Wrestling. Z-Man says he caught the heat backstage for using this move, so you wouldn't see this move much after this match. He quickly goes for the pin but gets only a 2 count. Bob Holly gets flung into the corner and Flying Brian gets tagged in. They perform an assisted shoulder block, and this move looks pretty cool. Crowd seems to be really into this match so far. He goes for the pin, but it's broken up quickly by Bam Bam Bigelow. Holly gets whipped into the ropes and Brian goes under, then over for a leapfrog before hitting a beautifully executed dropkick. Then Flying Brian takes out Holly, then Bigelow, and the crowd is really popping for Flying Brian here. Holly flings Brian off the top rope and then climbs the rope himself, and then just check out this sequence. Brian ends it with the vicious dropkick to the corner and goes up to the top rope again. Bob Holly starts crawling towards the corner and Flying Brian takes out the referee in the process. He checks on the referee, which gives Bam Bam Bigelow a chance to tag in and land a scoop slam, followed by a clothesline from behind. Brian fights his way out of the barrage, the nice combo, and finally tags in Z-Man. Z-Man wastes no time going to work and hits that Spanish Fly move again. He then goes for the pin and Holly has to jump in to break it up. But check this out, he gets some quick payback, sending Bob Holly flying ringside. This gives Bigelow a chance to get to his feet. He lifts him up over his head, but Z-Man counters nicely into a pin. The ref holds up the count when he sees Bryan step through the ropes, and I'm not sure what happened there. Bigelow makes the tag. Holly capitalizes on Z-Man, who's still staring at the ref. Holly hits a leg drop and Z-Man gets a surprise roll-up that gets a 2 count. He delivers a pretty nice dropkick before sending Holly into the corner. Z-Man then makes the tag and we see that cool assisted shoulder block again. Holly is down, so Bryan rams Bam Bam off the apron, climbs the ropes, thinks about hitting Holly with a big move, but instead does a perfectly executed moonsault that connects with Bam Bam Bigelow. Holly finally gets to his feet and tries to take out Z-Man, but this gives Bryan time to get back into the ring, gets the roll up, and we have a 3 count. This match was way too good for what could have been a quick squash, and these guys did a great job of setting the tone and getting the crowd pumped for the rest of the show. Next up on WWF Superstars, we have Power and Glory that's made up of Paul Roma and Hercules matching up against the Bushwhackers. We're gonna have to watch most of this entrance at least this once. I mean, what are they doing? The crowd loves it, so I guess I love it too. The match starts off with a little back and forth between Paul Roma and Butch. Butch makes a tag and Luke sends Roma into the corner for a pretty nice bump. He goes up to the second rope, but Roma wants no part of that. Luke catches Roma with a big knee, and then we see some good old-fashioned bushwhacker taunt. Roma walks Luke into the corner and tags in Hercules. He connects off the middle rope and sends Luke flying into the corner. Luke gets a shot in, but then takes a nice belly-to-belly suplex. He tries to crawl to make the tag, but Hercules isn't done with his beatdown quite yet. Gives him a nice old stomp to the back of the knee before tagging Roma back in. Roma hits a swinging neckbreaker and takes a second to admire his good work. That gives Luke a chance to finally mount an attack, and finally we see him make a tag. Butch is either really hyped to get back in or his head is really itchy. Roma, obviously grossed out by the head scratching, makes a tag, so Butch has to deal with the power portion of Power and Glory. He gets a face full of turnbuckle, but eventually manages to land a clothesline. Hercules isn't having any of that though, so he shows him what a real clothesline is, and then just look at the disrespect. Then Roma gets tagged back in and hits an unsuspecting Luke with the dropkick. Butch slides back in the ring and Roma delivers a swinging side slam. He goes off the ropes and hits Butch with an elbow drop. His work here is done, so he tags Hercules back in. Hercules wastes no time in delivering a low dropkick. Then Butch manages to make a hot tag to Luke, but he runs right into a devastating signature power slam. Referee makes the count, and that wraps this one up. It's not a bad match, but very one-sided. Power and Glory were dominant and showed they're serious contenders for the tag titles. Back over to WCW Saturday night, we have a matchup between Terry Funk and Mean Mark Callis, the man who would become the legendary Undertaker less than a year later. The two log up to start the match, and I fully expect this to be a hard-hitting matchup. Terry gets a few good shots in and seems to almost get Mean Mark on his heels with a big uppercut. Mean Mark's able to dodge the next one and dishes out a few jabs before absolutely nailing Terry with the big right hand. He then sends Terry into the corner, and listen to this impact. Terry goes for the clothesline, and that doesn't work, so he resorts to choking Mean Mark with the ropes. He goes for another clothesline, and this time he misses altogether, getting a punch to the back of the head for his trouble. And then Mark hits an inverted scoop slam. Terry gets a quick kick in before being totally leveled by a clothesline. Mean Mark continues the onslaught with a punch to the body and then flings Terry across the ring. Then check this out, Mean Mark shows some pretty impressive strength with a deadlift into a press. This is one bad man. Terry finally manages to mount some offense with some quick strikes, and then he hits a DDT out of nowhere and leads to a 2 count. That look tells me he knows that was his best shot to sneak a win. Terry goes for a flying crossbody, but it's dodged and a punch sends Terry into the corner for some more fun. Mean Mark sends him into the other corner and connects with a clothesline. He goes for the pin but only gets a 2 count. Then Terry goes on the offensive again, landing some jabs and finally deciding to work on the big man's leg. You can almost hear the crunch, and for the first time Mean Mark is in some serious trouble. Terry climbs the ropes and hits a moonsault, goes for the pin, but Marks kicks out just before 3. It's a Terry Funk show now, and he capitalizes with a few punches and a couple of stomps to the head. Mean Mark finally manages to counter with a leg drag takedown and hits the ropes to deliver a big splash. He blocks a punch from Terry and rocks him with a big right hand. And then we see it. Yep, Mean Mark was doing the tightrope walk before he became the dead man. He sets Terry up and delivers his heart punch, and that's enough to earn him the pinfall victory. Not bad, Mean Mark was dominant, but Terry managed to make it interesting in a few spots. Pretty solid match overall. Next up for WWF Superstars, we have Hacksaw Jim Duggan up against Virgil, who's accompanied by the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. They lock up to start the match and Duggan delivers a big right hand. He gives the crowd a thumbs up and a smile, and in return he gets an elbow to the jaw by Virgil. They go back and forth before Hacksaw sends Virgil into and over the ropes. Then we see $1 Million Man get Hacksaw's attention, giving Virgil a chance to recover. Virgil gets back in the ring and gets in a cheap shot before sending Hacksaw into the corner. He moves out of the way at the last minute and Virgil takes damage from the turnbuckle. Then Duggan goes on a little offensive run here and the crowd is moderately invested in the match. Virgil gets in a swinging neckbreaker and a hard chop to the throat. He then climbs the rope and hits a double axe handle followed by a knee facebreaker. Duggan breaks up the onslaught with a knee to the face and delivers a hard clothesline that sends Virgil to the outside mat. Hacksaw reassures the crowd with another thumbs up, but Virgil attacks him from behind and applies a figure four. DiBiase taunts and laughs, which is always epic, but Duggan manages to grab the rope to break the hold. He delivers a suplex and a stomp to the gut, and he's starting to get fired up. He hits a clothesline followed by a back body drop and caps it off with a spine buster. DiBiase says something mean about Duggan's pet dog or something, and Hacksaw abandons his attack to defend O'Roy's honor. Virgil capitalizes with a chop block and then puts him in a camel clutch in the middle of the ring. Duggan powers out of it and hits Virgil with a running shoulder block and delivers a big body slam. Ted DiBiase starts yapping again and the crowd lets him hear it. Virgil sends Hacksaw into the ropes and connects with a hard left that sends him to the ground. He attempts to end the match here but only gets a 2 count. Then Duggan goes on the warpath again, delivering another shoulder block, vicious lariat, capping it off with a hard knee to the face. He goes for the cover and this time he gets a 3 count for the win. Ted DiBiase is fuming and the crowd loves it. Okay match that leaves the crowd with a warm fuzzy feeling, watching the All-American hero get the win. Simpler times. And back over to WCW Saturday night, we have the World Tag Team #1 contender match between the Nasty Boys and Doom. Doom was recently forced to unmask, revealing Ron Simmons and Hacksaw Butch Reed when they lost to the Steiner Brothers back at Wrestle War in February. And they've been on a path of destruction lately to prove they deserve a rematch at Capital Combat. The Nasty Boys recently came over from Florida Championship Wrestling and are looking to make some noise in the WCW. The match starts off hard-hitting as Ron Simmons is not in the mood to play around. He whips Jerry Saggs into and over the ropes and follows him out to the ring for more pain. Simmons picks up Saggs like a cruiserweight and slams him hard onto the floor. Saggs takes a pretty good rail bump and the crowd is all for it. Simmons delivers a hard-hitting combo of punches that ends it off with a hard kick square to the jaw. The referee is already up to an 8 count when Simmons slides back in the ring, leaving Saggs in a heap on the floor outside. He tags Hacksaw Butch Reed in, but this is the easiest match of his career as the ref counts to 10 and Doom books the rematch with the Steiners, set to take place at the upcoming Capital Combat pay-per-view event. The WWF saved some heavy firepower for the last 2 matches of the show. In the semi-main event, we get the Barbarian with Bobby the Brain Heenan versus Hulk Hogan. The crowd goes crazy for Hogan as he comes to the ring. They lock up to begin the match, and neither guy gives ground. Hogan sends the Barbarian into the ropes and delivers a back body drop. He then goes to the ropes and delivers a running elbow to the head of the Barbarian. Hogan came to fight today, and the Barbarian is fine with that. They trade some punches before Hogan gets flung across the ring. I think the Barbarian looks great here and it's a shame he hasn't gotten a bigger push. Hogan sends him out of the ring with a low drop kick and follows him outside to add to the punishment. He works on the back with an elbow followed by a back rake. Hogan then goes for a powerbomb but the Barbarian reverses it and Hogan hits the floor hard. He then gets picked up and thrown into the guardrail and this bump looks painful. With the action back in the ring, the Barbarian continues his attack, sending Hogan into the corner and connecting with a big knee. Hogan finally gets a few shots in, then drops the Barbarian head first on the turnbuckle. He goes for the knee strike, but he gets reversed and the Barbarian hits a swinging neck breaker. Both men stay on the mat for a bit and the crowd is absolutely buzzing. Barbarian gets up first, looks to climb the top rope, but Hogan gets up and sends him crashing to the mat. He goes for the pin but only manages the 2 count. Then he tries to get the crowd going even more. As you would expect, the crowd is super invested in this match, and Hulk is feeding off the crowd wonderfully here. Hulk smashes the Barbarian's face into the turnbuckle, and we can see what's coming. Big strike to the face, then a kick to the leg. More posing from Hogan. Hulkamania is about to run wild, so let's enjoy the ride. The Barbarian tries to fight back, but all the little Hulkamaniacs are seeing what they came for. Hulk is hulking out. We see the leg drop and it was a brave but fruitless outing for the Barbarian. And I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed this one a lot. Alright, semi-main event time for WCW Saturday Night, and we have Sid, who's part of the Four Horsemen during this time, versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Steamboat's trying to get back into the title picture versus Flair, but first he's going to have to go through the rest of the Four Horsemen to get to the main man. There's a little back and forth between the two guys, and the Dragon was always a great worker in the ring. However, this match is not one of his best by a long shot. Two very different styles here, with Sid showing off power moves and Steamboat being a much better technician. We see Barry Windham get up on the apron a few times, letting Sid get the upper hand. Steamboat gives Sid a big atomic drop, and then the action spills to the outside, which can't be good for the Dragon. Sure enough, Windham picks up a chair, attacks Steamboat from behind before delivering a vicious chair shot to the head. The match ends in a DQ win for the Dragon, but the Horsemen make him pay and send a message. It's going to be a rough road to Ric Flair. It's main event time for WWF Superstars, and this is a big matchup. Haku accompanied by Heenan versus the Ultimate Warrior. Warrior runs out to the ring and the crowd can't get enough of it. This is Warrior's first title defense since winning the championship from Hogan at WrestleMania a month prior. The Warrior starts off the match aggressively, landing strike after strike, backing Haku into a corner. He keeps up the attack and sends Haku absolutely flying across the ring. Haku finally gets some offense in, hitting a pump handle slam, then sends Warrior over the top. Warrior's beside himself and takes a run around the ring for Warrior reasons. Haku wants a piece of the action, but referee wisely talks some sense into him. Action back in the ring, and the Warrior tries to get back on the offensive. Haku counters with an arm wrench with a forearm to the face and follows up with a hard clothesline. The referee has to break up a blatant chokehold, but Haku gets a headbutt. Warrior is able to get out of a suplex, but gets sent into the ropes, followed by a back body drop. Haku goes for the pin, but only gets a 1 count. Classic Warrior. Haku misses a clothesline, and the Warrior gets an opening to go on the attack, hitting a clothesline of his own. He goes for a gorilla press slam, but Haku gets out of it and pulls off a German suplex. Warrior crawls to the corner, and Haku comes back in full steam with a kick to the face. Warrior fights his way back with a series of punches and then manages to hit a press slam, sending Haku crashing to the mat. He hits a big shoulder block, obviously looking for the big splash, but Heenan starts yapping and gives Haku a chance to roll out of the ring and catch his breath. Now watch this got a laugh out of me. Haku climbs back in the ring and immediately gets sent tumbling out of the ring, and Warrior just bounces off the ropes a few times. Gotta love it. Warrior goes up to the ropes as Haku gets back in the ring. Haku looks to knock him off, but Warrior lands a punch and gives him time to land a big chop from the top rope. Warrior hits a body-to-body slam, then we see him go for the finishing sequence, clothesline, press slam, but as he goes off the rope for the big splash, Heenan gets involved in getting Warrior's fed up with the brain. He slides out of the ring as Heenan runs for his life, and the crowd goes nuts as Warrior takes out Heenan on the outside. Back in the ring, Haku sends Warrior into the ropes and inadvertently takes out the referee. Check this out, impressive reversal by the Warrior, and then he hits a devastating flying shoulder block. He goes for the pin as the crowd counts to 3, 4, 5, but the ref is still out. Warrior breaks the cover and he's fuming at the referee, who's like, dude, I just got ran over by Haku, I'm tiny. He's freaking Haku. Haku recovers and delivers a few chops to the throat, then hits a backbreaker on Warrior. Haku then locks in the tongue and death grip, and the Warrior's title reign is in serious trouble. Warrior goes to a dark place and manages to punch his way out of the hold. Crowd is going absolutely nuts here. Warrior hits a flying shoulder block. Haku tries to stop the momentum, but the two men collide. The Warrior hits another flying shoulder block. Warrior stomps Haku in the back, hits the rope, hits the big splash. Game, set, match, Warrior retains. Fun match, both guys look good. Fans enjoyed it, solid show for the WWF this week. Alright, main event time for WCW, and in this one we have the Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express. The stakes? United States title shot at Capital Combat. The matches between these two teams during the 80s are legendary, but do they still have what it takes in a new decade? Robert Gibson starts off the match versus Stan Lane and gets to work early with some trademark flair. He gets in a few strikes before hitting a gutbuster and then tags in Ricky Morton. Morton takes to the skies, landing a double axe handle, a few kicks, and we see a quick tag and a double team attack. Lane finally counters with an inverted atomic drop, and we see a sleeper hold that lets the audience catch their breath. Lane pounds Gibson in the face and makes a few snide remarks to a middle-aged guy in the front row of the audience. He goes for a pin but only gets a 1 count. Gibson delivers an elbow to the back and goes off the top ropes, hitting a nice looking back heel kick. Morton tags in as Lane tries crawling to make a tag of his own. Morton stops him in his tracks and kicks Lane in the face a few times. Lane rolls out of the ring, but Gibson sends him right back in. Morton goes for a pin, but Bobby Eaton breaks up the count. The referee breaks up the scuffle, and this gives Lane a chance to hit another inverted atomic drop, and we get to see sleeper hold number 2. Morton finally gets out of it with a jawbreaker. He sends Lane into the ropes, looking to set up a springboard splash, but Lane sees it coming, holds onto the ropes, and finally able to make a tag to Eaton. Eaton gets sent into the ropes and hit with a back heel kick. Morton goes up to the top rope, but Eaton is too fresh. He pops up, sends Morton flying to the mat, and then hits a rolling neck snap, and I always like seeing this move. Stan Lane tags back in and goes to work, hitting a bulldog and going for the pin. Robert Gibson breaks up the pin, and we see all 4 guys in the ring again. Lane sends Gibson to the outside, but Morton capitalizes and goes for a quick roll-up. The ref's a little late getting into the count, and it's just a 1 count. Lane gets up and lands a devastating arm wrench clothesline. He really connects, and this looks like it could win the match. Morton manages to kick out at 2, and Lane follows up with a butterfly piledriver, and that should be it. Gibson rushes in and breaks up the count, and we see all 4 guys in the ring again. Eaton sends Morton out of the ring, and Stan Lane gets a brilliant idea. Time to set up the rocket launcher tag finisher. Morton knows that would definitely end the match and manages to counter with the elbow before they can make the tag. Eaton gets a cheap shot in, and that lets Lane get an elbow shot of his own before sending Morton into the ropes. He applies a wrist lock. Morton fights his way out of the hold, only to get punched in the face. And here we go, sleeper hold number 3. Lane is so proud of himself. Gibson's not having it though and jumps in again and saves the crowd from another sleeper hold. Morton is exhausted but rolls halfway under the ring to prevent Lane from hitting a top rope attack. Lane walks to make the tag but notices Morton slowly crawling towards his partner. He grins, waits to the last second before plowing into Gibson. Lane has a smug look to his face, but Morton gets up and gives him a kick to the junk before hitting a wheelbarrow DDT. He kicks out and goes right back on the offensive, capping it off with a butterfly DDT. Gibson has to save the day again, but this time he sends Eaton to the outside. Lane hits another clothesline and sets up Morton for a final nail in the coffin. Morton sees it coming and ducks it, unleashing a series of kicks capped off by a Hurricane Rana. Morton finally makes a tag, and the crowd pops huge for this. Eaton tries to get involved but quickly gets sent out of the ring, and Gibson starts wreaking havoc on Lane. He hits a nice front flip on Lane and he tries to crawl away, and then goes to the top for a flying elbow. The crowd is in a frenzy as he ducks a clothesline from Lane, sending him to the corner and hitting a big dropkick. He goes back up to the top rope, but Lane dives and makes the tag to Eaton. Eaton comes in and sends Gibson crashing to the mat. He gets a few shots in, but Gibson manages to counter and hit a Hurricane Rana. Eaton rolls out to regroup, and the crowd is at a fever pitch. Back in the ring, Eaton gets sent into the ropes, but counters into a DDT and does some damage to Morton's arm. Gibson kips up, dodges a springboard elbow, and goes for a pin. Eaton kicks out at 2, and the crowd lets a collective "aww." Gibson gets a few kicks in, and then just check out this sequence.
There's the reversal.
Eaton dodges the right hand and suplexes Gibson into the turnbuckle. Both guys are just exhausted at this point. They finally get up and Gibson hits a swinging neckbreaker. He goes for the pin, but Eaton kicks out at 2. Gibson slams Eaton to the ground and goes up to the top rope to try to secure the win. He times it and connects squarely with the flying dropkick. Surely it's all over, right? Lane gets the save at the last minute and both guys head outside to make him pay for it. Back in the ring, Eaton sends Gibson into the turnbuckle before laying a few stiff strikes and then pulling him off the top rope as Gibson hangs for dear life. He makes a tag to Lane and you see a little extra aggression with these strikes to the leg. This has been a long match and Stan Lane is done playing around. Lane connects with a hard right that sends Gibson to the floor, but Gibson gets to his feet and connects with a hard forearm and then hits a back heel kick out of nowhere. Both guys are down, but Gibson is first to his feet and makes a tag. Morton sends Lane into the ropes and hits a back body drop, but Gibson gets knocked off the apron by Lane in the process. Lane hits a bulldog, a suplex, followed by a hard knee to the face. He sets him up for the double underhook piledriver, goes for the pin, and the referee finally counts to 3. Another classic match between these two teams. The Midnight Express booked their tickets to Capital Combat for a shot at the United States Tag Titles. Alright, so 2 action-packed shows this week with matches that stood out on both sides. Next episode, WCW continues to build towards Capital Combat and some really interesting feuds start to develop, so you're not going to want to miss episode 2. And last week I asked you guys on Twitter who had the better title picture going after episode 0, and the results came back dead even. So there will be a poll going up shortly after this video goes live to see who had the better episode. Hogan and Warrior put on really good matches for WWF, and on WCW side, there were 2 really good tag matches and a solid match between Mean Mark and Terry Funk. So it's going to be up to you guys to decide which promotion had the better show. I really hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and thank you so much for watching. Until next time, elevate your grind, game, yourselves, and each other. Peace.